Welcome to how to make 4K YouTube thumbnails with Adobe Express in this full tutorial. Now, I have partnered with Adobe Express to talk all things YouTube thumbnails, how to use this product. It's one of those things I've used for a long time. I was using Adobe Express before I was even partnered with them. So this is not anything new for me. This is actually really exciting, and I don't want to waste any time. I want to get right into it. So if you have never used Adobe Express before, it is completely free. You can use it on a web browser, on your phone, on your tablet. Use it where you want to use, where you are. And that's one of my favorite parts about it. So for me, we are going to show this off with Adobe Express. So good to see some familiar faces. Good to see you, Pearl. We're working on thumbnails. So if you have any questions when it comes to thumbnails, how we could do them, it's really important we talk about that, right? So for this, I want to go ahead and have Adobe Express. If you've never seen it, welcome. They are really focused on different ways you could use it. You can start by uploading. You can search, start a new design, edit some photos, create video, or if you are AI curious or want to, there is the AI Assistant beta. And so there's a lot you can get started with. You can also scroll down to see some of the quick options they have here. But what I want to focus on is YouTube thumbnails, YouTube graphics, YouTube videos if you really want. So we're going to go ahead and get started with one of my existing pieces of content. So this is a thumbnail I have already done. Here's the thumbnail for today's live stream. What I want to show you is this is an older YouTube thumbnail. And as we go through this, you're going to see the different steps. This is multiple layers, which you can now, if you hold Control or Command, you can now select multiple layers. This is a newer feature. I am so excited this is here. This is one of those things I've been wanting for a long time, seeing it, having the ability to do all that. It may seem simple, but these are the things where Adobe listens, and it's one of those things that I want to show you. This is a thumbnail designed in 1280 by 720p. This is YouTube's old thumbnail standard. YouTube recently updated to 3840 by 2160. So if you click File on top here, you should be able to see a bunch of information. If I click over here and I click Edit Page, you'll be able to see that this is that old thumbnail standard. What I want to do, if we click on File, we're going to be able to resize our old YouTube thumbnail here. If I click Resize, I can go to my recent, which you can see is that 3840 by 260. And so what we're going to do is click on this, and I want to duplicate and resize. If I want, I could just resize it, but I want to duplicate because I want to keep my original 720p. I see Geology Dude has joined us, who said, I'm at Neanderthal level of thumbnail design, hoping to advance beyond that level. Happy to have you here. That is one of those things. So we are going to click on duplicate and resize. Now, what this is going to do is give me that same version, maintain it, but it should now, if I click out of here and click in, boom, keeps my design. And now it is perfectly ready to go for those larger screens. I might want to make some minor tweaks like this, and maybe I make a couple of tweaks to, readjust. But in just a few clicks, we went from a design that is barely, fairly good here. And now, instead of having it in the old 1280p, if I click over here, we're now at 4K, and it clicks of the button. And so if you have your old thumbnail designs, whether it's in Photoshop, whether it is in other software, it is that easy to duplicate, resize, have it ready for 4K thumbnails. Now, this is one of those things where you could even go a step further. We showed duplicate and resize earlier, but let's say I want to promote an older video in my feed, right? We could also do a lot here. We could click File, and I could also, let's say I want to have some rulers. I want to have guides. I can now have guides and rulers on this project. This is one of those things they've been adding that really makes it helpful to understand more of what you can do. If I like this style, if I love this thumbnail, I could convert it into a template to use it later. These are all things, if you want, you could easily do. And I want to make sure that it's clear, because at the end of the day, these are the things that matter a lot for different levels of just thumbnail design. And these are all those things that make it easy. Now, if you've never used Adobe Express, trust me, it is a lot of fun to use, and it's actually not that challenging once you understand how everything's laid out. Here, you can see that this gives you access to some of the other stuff that Adobe has. On the left-hand side, you have your stuff, so you can access projects, files, brands, library, calendars. So let's go to your stuff. And here you can see the stuff that I have put into a project. So the Can Do Creators community, you can see that I use this a lot. You can see that we can have a lot of information. Now, this is on the premium account, but if you do that free trial, that is linked in the description, you can see how this comes into play. Now, there are libraries where I have a lot of my images that are me without a background that my good friend Aaron took. And so you can really play around. If you want to see some templates, you can play around here. One thing I like is that you can set things by free. So if you're on that free version and you don't want to see any of the paid options, just label it as free. Another thing I want to show that can be very helpful is you can sort by size. So keep in mind, a lot of these were in the old 1280 by 720 for the YouTube thumbnail standard. They are updating this in real time, but just giving you some ideas. So you can also go from templates to photos to videos, and keep in mind, you can label free. I want to show something that I find really important. You can exclude generative AI. This is something that I think Adobe's leading the way in. As much as they have Adobe AI products, you can actually search and exclude generative AI. You can have it to where if you don't want to use AI, you don't have to worry about it. You can sort by free, and that's across the board. So for me, I'm at free. For output, I'll do YouTube thumbnail here in the output. And you can even go by region, US, global. Maybe because I know we have Beanie, I have Australia here. And there are some Australian areas. I'll go US by default. That gives you an idea of what you're doing. You can also have different style. Maybe you want bold as an option. Maybe you're looking for abstract. So maybe you don't want bold, you want abstract. Maybe you want different kinds of styles. There are options for you. Maybe I want something corporate friendly. Maybe I'm going to be speaking to a group of people at their company. So these give you ideas of how to get started. And these templates, they're free. If I hit all, we'll have more options. But, you know, even 40 options to get you started and playing around with it, if you are just starting and are getting used to thumbnail design, and again, Geology Dude is a great example. I'm a Neanderthal level of thumbnail design, hoping to advance. Templates aren't a bad place to start because they give you an idea of where you could literally go. Now, if you don't want to use templates, that's fine. There are more you can do. There are the brands. Adobe also has this free scheduler. So if you want to link and do a bunch of stuff, you can help generate social captions. So maybe you have, for example, a YouTube live stream about how to make 4K YouTube thumbnails. I can say generate new. I could ask it to rewrite it, but let's see what it says. It's going to help me write a caption, especially if you're struggling to balance it. Master the art of 4K thumbnails. Are YouTube thumbnails lacking the wow factor? Join us for a live tutorial. And again, if you are new at this, you can create a post around it, edit this result. You can have a lot of fun. I think this one looks pretty good. If I click on the calendar here, I can edit it. I can still edit it over here. It comes up with different options. So I like that it gives me control even still. Now, I want to make sure I'm here so you guys can see this pretty well. The cool thing is I can select the channel. I have X low here, but it'll tell me if it's a little low. So discover, I could probably don't miss this chance to elevate your channel. Maybe that'd help. Maybe get rid of that because I would probably want to drop a link to the live stream you're watching because this is going to go live now. if I can get this to work, hit the enter button. Character length is a little long. Maybe I get rid of this. And then again, it has some terms. I can mention profiles. I could publish now if I want. And the cool thing is I can browse my projects here that I already have, or I could go ahead and upload my own. So really it's up to you and what you want to do here. But I will go into where this is, which is live streaming. And again, this is where your folder management comes. And this is where a lot of what we can talk about in terms of, we had a thumbnail, we're going deep on this. And so if I want, because I have this saved on my computer in 4K, I can just pull it from there, drag and drop, or I can find it on my file, upload now, and this will go out as I'm going live. So you can test this and see it. It's saying that this might be a little too big, which is ironic because I made this to be 4K. So funnily enough, my 4K thumbnail is too big for Twitter. That also might be why it's not showing up. It's a great idea, but maybe I'll use an older one for now. This should work. But it goes to show that, just because it's 4K here doesn't mean it's 4K across the board. Publish now. And then you'll see that it's here. We have the link. If people want to try it, you can check it out yourself. It should pop up. But I want to talk about some things you should know when it comes to 4K thumbnail design. The biggest thing to remember when working with 4K thumbnails is you have to make sure your smallest, thinnest text is still quite large because it still has to be read on a mobile phone. This is very correct. Now, because we are going to be looking at thumbnails a lot today, I also want to show some things that could be helpful in general for YouTube. You could maybe need to remove the background, right? So I have a whole list of folders and videos of pictures of myself. You can do this for videos, you can do this for stills, where you can take an image and upload it with a background to remove it. So I have a couple here that I want to experiment with. Let me go ahead and grab them. And I think they're important because when you understand what this is here to do, remove you from the background for thumbnails, this is huge. So I want to make sure we show an example. This is too large. Again, the problem I have is some of my files might just be ever slightly too large. Again, this feature, remove background, is free, so I got to be careful on the ones I'm choosing because some of these photos are like high-res raw. So that's a me thing, not really an Adobe thing. I know I have some. Here we go. So this will take the background, and you can see it here. It is this white background, which is a photo drop. I can have it transparent. I can have it lots of different ways. Oh, it's trying to load something else. I put me on a sandy beach if I really wanted to. I could put me on snow. I'm going to keep it transparent. And now that is a tool that I can use for different assets. If I'm trying to go on my website, there's a QR code. So let's say that I wanted my YouTube channel to be one of those assets, or maybe I want to put this in a thumbnail. I would just grab my YouTube channel link. I could choose PNG, which, as it says, is the best for images. And I could use it on here if I wanted to maybe make a business card. Maybe I'm going to a YouTube event and I don't have a business card. This is a really good way you could use those templates. So you want to use what you have. I could also just download it, and you can even test this now. See if this works. It should. But yeah, these are some of the ways you can use it. And there are quick edits that are all here for you to try. I really recommend if you're going in, go deep. There's so much. You can animate audio to some characters. There is convert to PNG, SVG. You can crop image. You can make collages. You can, generate some presentations. There's quite a lot that you can do all from here. Now for me, I'm going to click plus here, and I want to go to create. You could choose any of these options, which are standard social media. So these are the different ways if you're trying to make certain things. If I want video, I can go video. I can go standard and suggested. I can do custom size. So I will do the new YouTube 4K thumbnail size. And instead of 25160, it's 2160. Create new file. And here we have everything I could need. And this is where we're going to be spending a lot of time. And if you have any questions on thumbnail design, this is your place to ask it. One question I get asked when it comes to thumbnail design is, what is the most important thing? When it comes to YouTube thumbnails, the most important thing is that people click through to watch your video. It should also accurately represent the YouTube video. Misleading thumbnails, also known as clickbait, is against YouTube terms of service and ultimately harms the video's performance long term. You should make a thumbnail click worthy, not clickbait. And that is a thin line. So this thumbnail of the live stream you're watching will most likely be A/B tested. However, it is also important to note that with Adobe Express, that resizing with those different ways, it's easier now than ever to have different thumbnails on there. So I want to make sure that I take a beat to just acknowledge that. So here is our background. This is a good question. Can something be click worthy and clickbaity? If it's clickbaiting, that means it is disingenuous. So no. Clickbait by nature is you baited a click. You don't, sometimes it could be something that ends up being worthy with the clickbait, but they really are good at defining it, and audiences are smarter than a lot of people give credit for. So the first thing I'd recommend doing is start by renaming your file by clicking right here near this cloud icon. And we are going to call this YouTube thumbnail 4K demo file. I want to go ahead and hit that. Welcome, Imagine with Gretchen. So we are going to start with our background. If you are new, you can click anywhere on the canvas, and this works for both desktop and mobile devices. There's a couple ways you can do things. You can click color here, and if you set up your brand profile, it'll have your colors. So you can easily make sure your background are always one of these color options ready to go. I have additional colors like this purple. These different shades. This is new. They have gradients now. You can change how things look, including this preset gradient. If I want to customize it, if I want to choose a custom background color, I can come over here. Let's say I love this green, and now it's there. But I'm going to go and click on these gradients. Now, if you're not familiar with what a gradient is, it's very clear what you're seeing on screen. It is a gradient of two colors with in-between data. You can then click back on background, click custom, and you can choose how much of one color shows. You can swap which side of this the color's on. You can rotate the gradient to have it better. You could even choose some of the swatching. So for example, if I know this swatch color, which I can see here, and I copy it, and we go to the gradient, I can replace it here to have my color. And I can again rotate it. I can play with it. So these let me keep true to my brand. And what I'm doing is I'm going to my brand colors, clicking custom, copying this code, going to the gradient where this is still my other color. I'm clicking here. And now I have the KDCC brand colors. Let's say I wanted to add another one though. Maybe I make this one the blue. And maybe I make this one white. Now this is giving ice cream flavors to me. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments, and if you're watching live, what do you think of this? To me, this is giving like ice cream, and it's giving a lot of different things for me. I can change how much of this white is here. I could also maybe make it green instead. So the way I could do that is by dragging this here, make it more like rainbow. I'm curious what you think. Ice cream isn't horrible, no. I also could do darker. And again, you want to be careful. You don't want to be overwhelming here. I could also change it by doing here. So if I wanted to try maybe a lighter color, I could do that. If I want maybe a more subtle of the gradient, I can also rotate it this way. And because I have the gradient in different locations, if I want to make it like this, this is a way I could do it. Now, this is the background layer itself, and there's nothing wrong with this. But if you're looking to be like Geology Dude and you're wanting to upgrade and up-level this, what we're going to do is I'm going to pretend I'm Geology Dude. and we are going to make a photo for him. So to add content, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my swatches. Going to start from the default. If you don't want a background color, click here for no fill, and this gives you a transparent background. I love starting on a transparent background. It's how I learn, how I can design through. And then if you're just getting started, make sure that you consider having some rulers and some guides. What these are going to do for you is you can make sure that you have the center, you can make sure things are aligned. These can be very helpful for as you're doing things, especially since we know the in-between points. So what you could do is the in-between of 3,840, or half of that, you're going to want to divide that by 2, and that gives you 1920. So if I want, I could find 1920, which is the halfway point. Whoop, add it there. Oh, come on. It's me. I'm being a little, oh, come on. This is user error. I can delete this other one, or by just clicking here. And now for the 2160 divided by 2, that's going to give us 1080. And we can find that middle point. So we know, if I can get my mouse, if I can, I'm the problem here. I'm having too much specific I love working in design things. This also could be a great example where, there we go. Now I know this is the center of these 2 points. So having these helps me have guidelines and rules. So I know if I'm trying to design, these are my 4 quadrants. Now 4K, interestingly enough, I believe is 4 times the size of 1080. And if I'm right, and someone smarter than me in the comments will tell me, that these should all be the old 1080p size. So we have a lot of room to design in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit add content, go to media, and then photos. If you want, you can explore. So if you want to edit a video, there's sound effects, there's music, there's videos. So maybe you need B-roll. There's some pretty good B-roll options here. And if you want to make sure, like before, set to free, exclude Gen AI if that's not what you're into, and search, right? So if this was a video for Geology Dude, I could type in rock from the video. Maybe I could go more specific. I'm sure if you're still watching Geology Dude, you would know more than me and what kind of rocks to have and feature. I could find B-roll of some geology possibly happening, some sweeping shots, and these again, if I go back to free, exclude Gen AI, I know I can use these. I have 349 options to utilize. So let's go to photos and let's go there. I'm not sure what this video is going to be about per se, but that's fine. What I want to do is see how we could design it. Now this, pardon me, this looks pretty interesting to me. This is someone holding the rock. I could maybe use this as an example. Keep in mind though, that this image itself may not be 4K. I will have to stretch to fill this to my 4K screen. Now this is a pretty high quality image, so that helps a lot. Now I will admit, I am not a geology expert. I like rocks more than ice cream. That's fair. Now I'm curious, Geology Dude, who is watching, and if you're watching, let me know if you know this. You're going to know what this is. And this is also another fun technical fact from Beanie. This is consumer 4K, not true 4K. There is a slight and notable difference. Now, as I'm working here, I might want some text. This is where you get a lot of power and a lot of ability because it taps into Adobe fonts to utilize text for your image. You can have text that you favorite and you use frequently. I have some of those and you can see them in my projects and my thing. You can see your recents. So maybe if I want to do Gotham book and I want to really go very noticeable, I could say something like breaking down. I don't know what this rock is. Purple rocks. It could be amethyst, but I don't actually rightfully know because I'm not a geologist. Now I can change this text color, and I can do that with maybe purple if I want to get the amethyst color. Find a moment. I could color pick by using the color picker. So maybe I want to find a real nice purple within the rock. Maybe a different image could do better. But I could also customize it so it is true from the rock, although it's really up to you on how you want to do this. I could also make this text white. If we want to have different text layout, I could maybe even have a circle layout around it. So I could say breaking down, and then we could, rotate it. You could have a lot of fun with this. That is an option. Importantly, you can undo or redo at any moment. So I can go back to this point. And I think it's important that we go. And even geology dudes, like, it's hard to tell. But if I wanted to be more certain, that's where we go back to media. And we could just search for amethyst. I mean, that would probably do better. We could do amethyst geode. And again, I want to go free, exclude generative AI. And maybe this is where we can, go a little bit deeper when it comes to using this. So here we have, I kind of like this idea, but I want that on this background. So what I'm going to do is we're going to click on our layers. And I'm going to click here. And I'm going to click delete. You can also hit delete on your keyboard. It'll remove it right up. I want to make this large. If I want, I could right click, and there's a lot more options, or you can hold. There are ways you can play with the layers. You could crop this image, or I could even replace this image with another amethyst, and it'll keep my previous filters and let me search. So as we go through, maybe there's a better one I want. I think this is our image, but maybe there's something I want to look for. And then what I'm going to do is make it go to the full size. And over on the left-hand side, if I ever lose this option, just click your image, remove background. And now when I do that, it's going to do exactly what it says. It's going to remove this background so we can design around this rock. Or technically this geode, to be more specific. And notice how it keeps to the size of the rock, or the geode. Click here. We could actually play around with this and have the text be in the background. And if we want, we can change the background color to maybe our KDCC blue. Can have some fun with this, make this even larger in theory. If we really want to show up the geode, well, we can do that. If you're like, hey, is this centered? You can always at any moment click over here, go to middle and center, and it'll make sure it is those things for you. I care more if this is in the middle correctly than if it is centered. And I can also hold shift to keep it going in a direction because I want to keep breaking down. And now I see from Geology Dude, how could I add a shadow? If you click the text, go into effects. You can generate this. So if I wanted to, I guess I could make this look like an amethyst. And I could say, help make this text look like an amethyst. And then that's how we could do that. So we could say amethyst. Oh, if I could type. And what it'll do is generate that to look like it. And it'll give me some choices. It's going down here. It also has some inspirations we can go off of. I want to eat the amethyst. And we could pick the different ones and we could decide which one looks the closest to this image. Now, the problem with that is when you click the whole thing, it blends in too much. So I may not do it here, but it is an option if this is something you want to do. Now, Geology Dude asked about shadow. So we'll go to shadow. And there's classic, smooth, lift, glow, halo, strong, hazy. And if you don't want any of those, you can also rotate. So if I want this to be black with a white shadow, I just hit that. I hit this little icon for customization. Likewise here, if I really want full control, I can go here and I can choose the shadow color. Maybe I want this to be purple. Maybe I want more of a blur. You have a lot of control. If I want more distance, I can add more distance. And again, because this is a complementary, this is the same color, I would want to go kind of to the opposite end, right? So maybe I do an orange to help this stand out, and maybe I do it classic or smooth. So it stands out. We still have this. We have the geology dude here. So now breaking down, and because this is very clearly an amethyst, I mean, this is not bad. There's still more we could do. So we could look for elements. We could type something like an arrow. And we could make sure we have an arrow to point to it, because it does actually matter. And if you're ever like, how do I know if something's free? If it has this little crown, it's a premium asset. But if it doesn't, it's a free asset. So there are lots of ways. There are stickers. You can look at the different icons for how you may want to call something out. So there's a lot you can do here. I want to go ahead and play with this arrow. Arrows, unfortunately, do make a pretty big difference when it comes to how you do this. Now, you might be like, why does he have it facing the wrong way? We'll just click position. We will flip it. And now we are breaking down. And if I want, because I could layer this, and again, the beauty of layers, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but I want to point it at the amethyst itself. I now have an arrow. I can click here. Let's make it, a white color. Let's go ahead with this icon. Take a look at it. I could animate this if I wanted this in a video format. I could have it fade in. Maybe I want to start this image. It's a still I took and I wanted to animate in. There's a lot I could do. Now, some objects and items, objects, I don't know why I said it that way. I'm going to get rid of the animation. I'm going to hit none. That'll get rid of that there. They don't always have a shadow. So another thing you can do is when you select it, you can select it through the layers. And if I want the rock in front of the arrow, I move it through layers. I can also right click the rock and say send to back, which will send it all the way down, and that puts the text. I could also right click again and bring forward. So that way this is still above it. But if there is no shadow option, just duplicate. Move the first one slightly off center. Click on the bottom layer. It's pretty simple to do, actually. Let's say I want this gray, or maybe I want this a red color, and I really want this to be noticeable. Give it a nice red. We're going to go from here. It's pretty easy to add that kind of secondary effect, and it draws attention. With the title, this could do very well. Now, if I don't want to see what these grids look like at any moment, I can show rulers. And if I bring it back, so do my lines come back. But now, to Beanie's point on those smaller text, let's go 10%. And I can still read breaking down. And because this could do well, I'm pretty sure you can tell this looks like breaking down amethyst. And even if you don't know what this is, it helps you understand and gives allure. So that is just one thumbnail. But let me know, what kind of thumbnail would you like to see me design? Because you can do quite a lot in Adobe Express using these. And it's easier than ever. Like, there's so much more we can cover and do. So to reset now, you can click here. If I want to resize this, let's say I want to share this to social media. I want to make this my Instagram story. Click on that. Duplicate and resize. Breaking down. All of a sudden, we have the ability to make this a little bit more Instagram story friendly. Or maybe I want to tease this in the community tab. This is something we can do and have some fun with. It doesn't need to be the exact same image. You could come at this from multitudes of angles. Maybe I want to keep one here. And then I could do something like animate all, where I could make this whole thing ready more for a Instagram story. Maybe I want it to do waterfall, or I could do random fade where it decides how it wants to come in. These give you some options, and I can remove them all by clicking here. And all of a sudden, I have multiple choices here. Now you might be like, how do I get back to that other thumbnail? You click at the bottom right hand in Adobe Express, click here, and we're back to our geology thumbnail. Happy to have some people here. Welcome, welcome. So this is just one thumbnail we're working on. Now, let's say we have another kind of thumbnail. How do I add to this? Because what I do is I add a lot to a page. It's funny because when we go back over here and we go to like your stuff and we look at what I work on, if you notice, I have multiple thumbnails in one image. And now I have the difference between some of these, this one, which is 1280, I have to go through and redo them all. I have some here. Like these are all ones I'm going to have to redo for 4K, but it's very easy to do. And even here, you can see me working on an A/B test. This one, I'm still trying to figure out my B option, but this for now is my thumbnail that most saw when they saw it live. If you're watching the future, you may notice it's a different thumbnail. So I wanted to show, how do we get to this view? Well, that's where we click page at the bottom. I want to make this the same size as the image here, which is the new thumbnail standard. If you want to check, click edit page, should be here. And if you add title here, you can actually have YouTube thumbnail 4K demo. Maybe we have a camera review, thumbnail. And I can call this camera review thumbnail. Pretty easy. So maybe on this one, I want to have a little bit more fun. I want to play around with it some more. I want to add some depth. One great way to add depth, and you want some depth to your thumbnails, is by picking a color. I'll pick this. Actually, I like the blue for now. Can you tell with the blue mic cover? Shout outs, by the way, to a friend of the channel, Doc Rock, and his mic pops. They are Doc Pops. They're really fun. I really like them. So yeah, just wanted to give a shout out there. So what I want to do now, and all of this, by the way, has been done for free with free assets. There's lots for you to explore and try. The resizing has been great. And if you have questions, if you have a thumbnail design, Pearl, I do see yours, but because of the copyrighted nature of Poppy Playtime and other IP, I'm keeping it safe. But maybe in the future, maybe in the Discord, we can go a little deeper. So I want to have some fun with some design. Let's go into elements. So we looked up arrow last time, but maybe I want to throw in some shapes. One I might use is a square. And I want to rotate it. I want to make sure we're at that true 45. Now, I'm not going to keep this color, but I want to have it in a color like this. I want to choose some depth here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build out kind of a pattern. If I do this right, you'll see what I'm going for. All I'm doing is right clicking or long holding. You can also see Control or Command D depending on your device. And we're creating a pattern. Now, what am I going to do with this pattern? First, I'm going to adjust it to where it almost touches the top. And you notice how it gives me a good understanding of the design I'm doing. And I can see, if I click over here to my layers, how many different layers there are. We're working with lots. And keep in mind, we're at a 4K image. So this is one of those things we want to make sure we're keeping consistent, we're having a lot of fun with. And so as I'm designing this, I want to make sure that I'm making a design that is not too distracting from the main image, but also really cool to look at and fun. So there are layers to how we can do this. And one of the easiest ways we can do this is by having them overlap like this. And now, if I want, like I showed earlier, if I control click, I can select all of these, and then I can throw them into a group. And you want to group them so that if I want to move it, which by clicking here, they all come along for the ride. Because if I don't group it, well, I'm having to manually do it. I'm going to hit this so we don't have to do that. And so this is how you can have a little bit more fun in these designs here. You can do a lot more, and I want to make sure we put them over here, because these are the things that kind of matter. And if I am playing around with just kind of the colors I'm using and things like that, there are lots of ways I could do it. I could have these squares. Maybe I want to change and play around with it. I could do opacity, and instead of pass through, it gives you ideas of what these looks like. Screen, I could reduce the contrast of these. So I want to click on the group over here. Opacity, we do screen. And now we have that kind of design, and maybe I want to make this even larger. It kind of looks like a jagged design, but it really started out as squares. And if I want to go here, I can click more, and I can duplicate this group again. Now notice how when two similar groups are on top of each other, what we kind of run into is, I'll actually zoom out so I can do this a little more. Click here, find the bottom. What happens is it causes an interesting thing where it gives a higher opacity. Maybe you want that. I'm not looking for that in this image. So I want to grab the other group. I want to put it kind of to the edge, and I want this one to the edge. And what we're designing now is a little bit more depth. And I'm going to duplicate this again. And what we're talking about is how to make an interesting background. So now, by them touching and having them be far away, I could change the opacity even more. Maybe I don't want them to be super obvious. I could have one be more obvious than the others. And then this does add a cascading kind of design. And I can still have a lot of fun here. We're getting a lot of people joining, and if you're just joining us, this video and live stream are sponsored by Adobe Express, but we are talking about basics of thumbnails here. And we're designing in 4K. And we're talking about more intricate designs. So this one I gave a hypothesis of is a camera review thumbnail. So I wanted to design kind of a fun background that I figure looks pretty good. One thing I could also do to add a visual interest is maybe I raise one of these, you know, and have that kind of zigzagging pattern a little more over here. And I have this kind of cut off. So now, if I want, I have a little bit more depth, and I want this one in the center to actually be in the center. We have that little zigzag pattern. It's not super distracting, but it gives a little bit more. And maybe on this side, you know, we have even less. So there's ways you can add visual intrigue with simple shapes here. I could even change it up really drastically by, rotating it. And as I'm adding in layers and objects and we're building and designing, it gives us a lot of choice here. So we did a camera review as an idea. So I want to go and find a photo. Maybe it is a specific brand of camera. We'll see if they have it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We want to use premium, and I'm going to, exclude generative AI. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You might already have an image as well. So if you have a high quality image of a camera like this one, and again, because this is for a camera review, one thing you can not only do with this, we're going to click remove background again, and this will handle it. I want to reset so we can see this up close. So this is our camera for our camera review. One thing you'll notice is it does give a little depth. If you want to create a depth effect, making an image larger, scaling it up or down, can help add depth. Now, we asked how do we add shadows? We go to Effect. We can add in a little shadow here, give some foreground, background separation, go to Custom, add in some more distance if we really want, make this blurrier if we want more that way, if we want it to have a harder outline, maybe like comic book style. You don't add any blur. So these are all ways that you can up-level your design. I want to add what is kind of a glow actually. And if we hit Custom, you can see how that works. And when we hit distance, it'll put it a certain way. We go blurrier, we can see how that plays. So really play around with what you're kind of going for with your style, and you will be defining it as you go. Now for me, I like this color background. I like the design pattern we did, but the problem is it doesn't really give me a lot of places that we can design just with how I took this image, right? That kind of limits us. When we are making a YouTube thumbnail, one thing you need to also consider, timestamp is going to be in the bottom right. Playlist and other options are here, so text should really avoid this bottom quadrant. So this is a good image example, but it doesn't give us a lot of text for options. You could use some of these default, but I'm just going to say, you know, Sony review, although this looks to be more of a Canon camera. You could do it like this, where you have Canon camera review, and then you make it a little larger, but the problem is this might be harder to read on smaller devices. Now, obviously, the camera is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I could just downsize it, but then, you want to keep thumbnails simple. And this design isn't bad. It might just be not your style, and that's okay. Everyone has different styles. This might make more sense for a blog than an actual camera review. So these are just other ways that if you want, you can play around with. Now, I like to go with a more realistic kind of thumbnail when it comes to review. Hello there, Stanley. Happy to see you. For me, if I'm doing a camera review, because again, going back to it, I'm going to type in maybe videographer and see what comes up. And again, free, exclude. What image comes up that I could use to help give a more in-depth? This one I really like, and this looks to be the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. From here, what I could do, a couple of ways I could do this is I could make it even larger, have this here, maybe even angle it slightly. And then what we could do is play around with the framing here. So there's lots of ways you can design. For here, because our background color is this, maybe I want to actually generate similar, or I want to do something, in this style, or maybe I want to fill this as much as I can. There are lots of ways you can do that. If I wanted to, I could use the AI assistant, which is up here, which is a newer feature. I could say expand this image's background to cover the whole space. It might work, it may not. We'll see what happens. It is in beta, so this might be a bit of an advanced prompt, but it looks like it's figuring it out. All right, expanding the image background to cover the canvas. Now, it says it has, but it may mean it's done it in a way that I can't tell. It's also kind of added a crop. So if you have this happen, you can hit in the crop and fix. Now, in a way, maybe, but I don't think you can really tell this is the DJI Osmo Pocket anymore. So this is where we could be creative in a different way. Click out of here. And maybe we have this section over here for text. We can rotate it a little more. We can have it angled to where you can still see the gimbal. And so, yes, this causes a little area to happen here, but what I'd do is I would use the options available. Rectangles, through editing, can give you depth. We're starting with squares, but squares are not the limit. You can crop these. And what you can do is what then was a limit is now an option for design. Maybe I want it to have a different kind of look. That's where border thickness comes into play. And if I want this look to match, I could do something like floral or newsprint. I could really make this thick to make it that more like newspaper, that kind of rough aesthetic, if that's what you like. I could do some dots. I can do triple. I could do dashes. I could do a dotted dash, dotted. Really depends on like what you're trying to do. I kind of like the idea that this is like newspaper. It feels intentional. Thick with two C's. Yes. So now what we could do is, because we can kind of hide the line even more, because we could put it closer to this side. And if we rotate it, there we go. You really don't know where the line is. And if we want, I could make this less thick, very thick, but I kind of like it around here. And now what I can do is we can say DJI Osmo, you know, maybe we have this, we could have it be white. And if we want to have a background of this, we click, there's a way we can do that. We can click out of here, go to effects, hit this right here, the cutout, and we can have this on our red, our green, our black here, whatever makes the most sense. Maybe I want DJI Osmo, to be standing out like this. Now keep in mind, the reason that this white border is not above it is if I would need to move the layer, and now it's under it, which kind of gives it its own feel in itself. I could then duplicate this or copy the style. If I hit copy style and then, paste, that is something that I could then paste and match style. So really it's depending what you're trying to do. What I find more beneficial, right click, duplicate, drag and drop. So now we could have DJI Osmo Pocket, and have that here. Maybe for this one, I don't think I want the effect, so I'd remove the shape. DJI Osmo Pocket. And then maybe we type in 3. This could be a way you do it. But with the space here, I mean, obviously the idea would be more focus on this. And again, this newer feature, if we right click, we can select multiple, group them, and now drag and drop, put it maybe more center. And this might not be my actual style, but it gives you an idea of what is possible. I can still edit these individually. So if I want to edit the shape size here, I can. If I want to keep it really tight, or if I want it to not touch the edge like it is. If I want it to be really large, I can really play with this. So find the style that works for you. Maybe you want it to have an even bigger border, and maybe you want, for this one, you can even change the individual text. So this is ultra. So maybe you want this to be a medium. And then for 3, you want this to be even less. So maybe you're playing around with that. But keep in mind, with 4K, we really need to make sure as we zoom out, you can read it. So DJI Osmo Pocket 3, the 3 is becoming a little too hard to read. That's going to be what should set your stuff here. Now, I've been designing some thumbnails here. I want to know your questions when it comes to thumbnail design, because we've had 2 now. And again, if I don't want this background color, maybe I want a different one. Maybe I want this to be yellow, but that matches this. You should always think of complementary and contrasting colors. Maybe green works, and instead of this being red, and again, we're going a little quick, but not too quick. Go back here, change the shape color to red. We make that blue or even yellow. And then we change this to the darker color here. That could stand out in a different way. You can really figure out what works for you. And another cool thing, if you set your brand colors and go over to brands, let's say you don't know what colors you should have, click the template. And now I can apply brand here, and it can play through multiple color combinations. Maybe this is something I want to try. This darker color, I think I'll keep this white, but I do like the idea of it looking like it does over there. And now we've played around with it. We have different ways that this works, and it's a different way you can do it. So now we have our camera review. And if you're just joining us, I see we've had quite a lot of people joining through the stream. Thank you so much. We have Pearl, we have Kenneth, we have Preston. Great to see you, man. It's been a while. Stanley, we have Geology Dude, Pete, John's Studio, Beanie. So we're talking some real good thumbnail advice. Another thing I would tell you when it comes to YouTube thumbnails being 4K is make sure that the graphics, the images, everything you're using is a high quality that when it's shrunk down, the beauty of it being 4K on desktop, if you're doing this on mobile, on your mobile devices, there's a limit still at 2 megabytes up to 10. Be sure it depends on what device you're on. Because I am using this on desktop, we have up to 50 MB, and it's really exciting. This is a really good time to be a creator. Now we have white beam in an S curve, maybe. That's not a bad idea. We have Kenneth Racing, and he does a lot of racing content. So maybe that's another great example of a thumbnail we can do. Let's click on page. Same size. We're again checking here. Racing thumbnail. So we have our thumbnail image, and I want to go and keep doing some advanced thumbnail. A lot of these practices, no matter what thumbnail we're doing, matter. Readable text at multiple sizes. Having the object that they want to see matters. Like this one, I could even go a step further. But we have Kenneth here, which is exciting, and I want to show. One thing I like to do is go into media, photos, and again, you know our filters. This time I want to show an example of premium. I want to do background texture. And let's see how many options we have. We have quite a lot of options. And even though we're in premium, how many do we have in free? 28,000 plus options. If I wanted to add a visual breakup, I could add this image, really expand it to be larger, hit right click, send to the back. And what I'm going to do is play with the opacity. I could do screen, multiply. And if you multiply it, you notice that it's now a subtle image in the background behind it, and it kind of helps it pop even more. Without it, with it. I'll do normal and show it another way, so it might help you see it. With multiply, you could see this in the corner, and I'll actually zoom in to the image. Ooh. Reset. This is where you can have a lot of fun with this. You also, if you want, could drag and drop if you're on desktop. But hopefully you guys can see that background texture. And this is something we can do when it comes to this racing thumbnail we're going to be doing. So I'm going to go to add content. If you have photos from the game you're playing, like maybe Kenneth does, go to upload from device, go ahead and pick, you don't have to do it within here. Make sure you have the rights to it. Things like that. That's something you can do. This is a really good question from Home Rapid Repair. Do you have a take on super authentic thumbnails, such as a screenshot? I absolutely do. Boy, do I. And I'm so glad you asked this question, Home Rapid Repair. We can get there. So if you want to see that is something we can do after this racing one. But I'm going to type in, F1 racing. See what shows up. I want to make sure for this one, we're going to go premium, because if you try that free trial, and if you already have your access to an Adobe account, this can do a lot in terms of getting you access. If you have an Adobe account already and you're paying for Creative Cloud, Express is included in that. So, Kenneth, I will admit, and as we've had this conversation, Kenneth is a channel member. I'm not super familiar with F1 yet. I know a lot of people love it. I know a little bit about it, but you do Gran Turismo in particular. If there is a noticeable car or track that you do for Gran Turismo, this should be multiple ways in terms of it. Now, I know Gran Turismo is not always F1, but this is just something I'm aware of. I believe, and you will keep me more honest, it's high performing racing. So maybe I could look up like a McLaren or something. Now, keep in mind, these images are ones that are from Adobe, are safe to use. I will have to go back to premium and exclude generative AI. But if you're customizing a car, showing it off on a track, or you want to, get intrigue, this is maybe somewhere you could do it. Similarly, you're going to know your car better than me. And, you say you use a photo mode in it. That's very helpful. I know you do Gran Turismo 7. And I could, in theory, if I have the correct, usage, if we're going to assume for this case I have the right usage. This is something I pulled from Google Images. We're going to say I have the rights to do this. If you want to edit this to be a little bit easier to see, one of the ways you can do that, click on it, adjust. You can do contrast. You could brighten the image. So if I want to make it a little easier to see, contrast. If I want this to be a little more saturated, make those colors really pop, but keep it, don't saturate it too much. Make it still look good. Maybe I want this image to be cooler, warmer. Maybe I want to cool it down so the green of the track helps this car stand out. Now what I could do is if I want to sharpen, I can sharpen that and look. Don't want to sharpen too much because it can look fake. But now, here's what I can do to really help with this. We're going to go ahead, duplicate the image, have it in the same place, remove the background. Because now we're really, playing around with this. We're going deep. I can go back to the original image, original image, make sure I have it selected, adjust, and really blur to help this focus. This now can stand out a lot more. And it's just one of the ways you can do this. Maybe with this image, what I could do, go to effects, add in a classic drop shadow. As we learned, no blur. Give it that kind of cartoon look if we want it to really pop. And now with what we're doing, we are giving us some depth. I can customize this further. I can add distance to really help sell this. And all of a sudden, it gives us more opportunity to make changes here. So this is a way you could cut this out. Now, if I go to text, for example, maybe there's a button, because I know you go live a lot, where we could play around with this. So maybe instead of get started, we put this here. We change this to live now, because I know you do a lot of streams. We edit the image in here to help with this. Click on live now to bring that over. And now what we're going to do, and we're building out a live stream thumbnail, is go to design elements. I'm going to view the circles. I want it without a background. Notice how it's keeping in the group. Hit that. What I want is this text to be white. This text to be make it, instead of KDCC red, I'll make it a true red. And maybe the background instead is live now with a red border. Because this looks more live to me now. Because this is grouped, we have our live now, we have the car, we can add some context, and that's a really quick one of how we could do it. Now, what Home Rapid Repair asked about is something I'm glad he did. That is actually nice indeed. And again, I don't keep in mind, you'll own the rights to the images you take. Keep in mind, look at all the different ways that are in the rules. I do not know them, but thank you. This is just an example of something you could do, right? And if you want to undo it, all you have to do is go back to position. We also could edit the individual car a little differently now. We can make it even brighter if we want to really help it, stand out. We could do some highlights to help with that. We can get rid of them. Again, play around with what you're looking for. If you wanted to do something with the background, maybe the effect of the shadow, maybe you angle it to where it's behind it and you add in a little blur to make it look like it's speeding down. You don't want this comic style. You may want some like speed, and you can add some distance so it looks like it's actively like zooming down the track. There's a lot you can do. So play around with it, have fun, and you'll know better than me. And because this background now might be a little dark, one thing you can do, again, we're learning there's a lot you can do with a good square. Justice for the squares, they can be creative if you let them be. So you're going to click here. We're going to bring this between, and I'm going to change this color to a white color. And then we're going to go to opacity. And this is before. And notice how it helps lighten it up ever so slightly. Before. You could also do screen, multiply. If you notice, multiply kind of helps. Find normal to be helpful, and you can give it a little more percentage. This is not technically great photo editing advice, but it is good for YouTube thumbnails, which is what we're focusing on. The thumbnail doesn't necessarily need to be the highest art. It just needs to get people to click and watch the video. We go to blur. If we get rid of the sharpen here, this can help. Maybe we want not too much of a blur. We want to see some of the road. We can blur just a little bit to help with that. And again, if we go to opacity here and go to 0, you do notice the difference in the track. By adding a little one here, by keeping it where it was in the image, if we zoom out, we realize we could actually make live now maybe a little bit larger, stand out within that area. And now you got yourself a thumbnail that is for your Gran Turismo live stream. And maybe this is the car you're showcasing. Maybe you want to focus more on the track. You have the ability to do that. And this is a simple story we're telling with a thumbnail. Before, we had a pocket review. We had a geology breakdown where we talked about, having things in the foreground. There's a lot we can do. Is it possible in this stage to sharpen the asphalt? You could. So another thing you could do is, if you want to bring in the asphalt again, click on erase. And you might be like, what is the erase going to do? Let's go ahead and paint back in and restore some of the asphalt here. And I want to do it where the car is, and maybe beautifully we do it to where that line naturally is in the asphalt. So what I'm going to do is reset. We click here. We click erase. Now it may say erase, but you can restore from here. So I want to make sure we're clicking the right layer. I want it to be this background layer. I think I may have done a little bit too much. There we go. I think I accidentally erased the whole thing. I want to go. And here we have the original background. Click on erase. erase, and then we're going to go to restore. And because we identified there's a natural line here, I want to make sure that we're doing that in a way that we can see. So here's what we're restoring. I've inverted it so we can see what we're restoring. I want to keep it on the line. There we go. So if I want to keep a little bit of the asphalt in, this is now part of that. And something I could do, I want to copy it, undo it, and if I hit paste, look at that. Pardon me. I'm able to keep it to the line, keep some of that asphalt back into focus, and now I can adjust this to your question, get rid of the blur, sharpen, and it can make that shadow look a little bit different too. I can also, because of where the edge is, play around with it. And if I zoom out, it makes it almost look like it's flying off the track with speed. Now, Kenneth says that with Live Now, I like it. Most time I have white text where if it says Daily Races or Gran Turismo. Now, after this is done being live, you could say something like race replay. You know, like if you're replaying your races. And if you want, this is something that could be fun for Kenneth here. And don't worry, Home Rapid Repair, I do remember your question. Maybe I zoom back in and notice the background here, right, of my square. I could make this look like a checkered pattern. Hit this, go to our border style, do dotted, and all of a sudden, it kind of looks like a racetrack. Maybe what I have here, you know, when you're doing your race again or your replay of the race, maybe this is red and it looks like red text on that checkered pattern could maybe look like that flag. You could also just design this to be the flag itself. You can have a lot of fun with it. So we have another question. This one comes from Home Rapid Repair. And his question was about, what about if you have a photo that is of real life that you're trying to edit into a thumbnail? I'm so glad you asked this because this happens a lot more than people think. And so when I look at them, or whenever I'm doing a thumbnail from, you know, my real life, can you edit those kind of backgrounds? The quick answer is yes, you absolutely can. He says, do you have a take on a super authentic thumbnail? So there's a screenshot of the video and maybe tweak sharpness. Yes, I do. In fact, boom, one of my removed backgrounds. This is also Adobe Express sponsored one. This one is in the old style. I had two ones. This one ended up working out of these two. I wanted to showcase what it looked like to remove the video background. So first thing I'm going to do with this is it's the old 1280. We're going to go to File, Resize, hit that custom new size, duplicate, and resize. So I want to make a new version. We have thumbnail A, but now we have thumbnail A 4K. And if I want, I can, you know, duplicate and resize this here by doing the same thing, duplicate and resize. So if I really wanted to A/B test my thumbnail here, this one is now thumbnail B 4K, but I don't think it's a big enough distinction. So let's go into the thumbnail here. Now, this actually is really, the background is transparent, but that won't show up. So I had to put this image here. This image is edited. Shocker. I added some light sharpness. Let's reset all of it. So this is the default. I sharpened it a little. I think I had it, you know, if I'm ever confused of how much I sharpened something, the beauty of having this is I sharpened it to 9 because I wanted myself to stand out. And if we hit adjust, I'm sharpened now to 10. We'll put it on 10. I could change my mind, but I think I added a little bit of saturation. Now I have red pigment in my skin, so I tend to either lean warmer here to kind of balance it, or I desaturate depending on how it looks. If I want to make myself a little brighter, I can, but keep in mind the brighter I make a real person, or if I remove that, I can really see the red undertones. So keep in mind when you're making these changes, subtlety is our friend here. If I do too much contrast, it looks a little interesting. Subtlety is the name of the game. Now I was wearing a black hoodie, so maybe I want to add some, a little more here so you can see a little bit more of the folds and the shadows. I want to add some highlights I can. And you can see the difference between the one that went live versus this new one. Subtle, but they're there, especially in the colors as you look a little closer. My hair, my face, there are some changes that are happening to this image. And again, this image is truly with the background removed. And you get an idea of how you easily could take all the things we did here and make this on this thumbnail. So we had our demo thumbnails, we started here. We have multiple layers, multiple backdrops. When you're making for 4K, readability is super important. So even if you want to make them slightly different, make sure they're still readable. So maybe instead I play around with the different font types. So this one, it has the most important one here, and we lose the different ones here. We could also, if I like an asset, right? If I like this, copy, I can paste it onto another one. Oh, I accidentally deleted all of it. Thankfully, that's why Control Z is here. But maybe I want to take this red arrow, copy, go over here, right click, paste, and it copies over all these pages. And that's something that's really fun and very useful. So now, if I want to change this, I can flip it. And we've designed some thumbnails that let you have some creativity. If we duplicate this again, you know how we feel. We put this one here. The second one, we change the color. Maybe we make it a darker color. And now we have depth. We have differences. We have our review, DJI Osmo Pocket 3. We can add some space between these. We can keep that spacing more in line. And again, this is now a group. So if I want, I can really make this a little larger. I can go to position, make sure it's in the middle again. And we have got depth. We have done lots of thumbnails. But most importantly, the best thing you can do for your YouTube thumbnails is experiment. Try A/B testing. See what works best for you. We covered lots of ways you can take a thumbnail and make it scheduled through the scheduler. You can do so many things using Adobe Express, and with thumbnails, with 4K, we have more room to design with. Higher ability. You have 50 megabytes on desktop. On your phone, it's up to 10. The sky is truly the limit, and I can't wait to see what you guys create. If you want to create, go ahead and give it a free try today. Link in the description. Thank you, Adobe Express, for sponsoring, and I hope you will go out there and try something. Share your thumbnails with us. Love to see them. Take care, everyone.